Hi everyone, so I have an updated concealer swatch video for you today. This is high-end and drugstore. I don't think there are a whole lot of new things in this video compared to the last time I did one of these, but I did split them up of drugstore and high-end. And I did pick up, I think between then I have two new, one drugstore and one high-end. So I wanted to just go ahead and get those for you today. So I'm gonna go ahead and insert swatches of everything here at the beginning, and then I also will include a link to a blog post which will have just an individual picture of all the swatches so you can see them up close at your leisure if you would like. Colourpop No Filter Concealer in Fair 02, NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer in Chantilly, Makeup Forever Ultra HD Concealer in Y21, Tarte Shape Tape Concealer in Fair, It Cosmetics Bye Bye Under Eye in Light, Maybelline Age Rewind Concealer in Ivory, Sephora Bright Future Gel Serum Concealer in Bavarian Cream, Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define in C1, BH Cosmetics Studio Pro Total Coverage Concealer in White. The one that really prompted this video is the Colourpop No Filter Concealer in Fair 02. I'd been thinking about getting this for quite some time. I just finally buckled down and ordered it when I was making another order when they had a 20% off sale here recently. So this is an extremely fair concealer, and I would say that it is the lightest of what I have. It doesn't have a very strong undertone of anything because it is so light. This formula dries pretty quick and it is quite matte. I have it under my eyes today. I don't wear full coverage concealer under my eyes because I just don't think it looks right. But I feel like this, the way I apply it, I can get a good medium coverage, and it sits well under my eyes. It doesn't look super dry, and other formulas that work well for me under my eyes are NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer and Tarte Shape Tape and MAC Pro Longwear Concealer. So those are kind of my top concealers as far as not looking dry throughout the day and not creasing throughout the day. And I don't set them with powder because if I use powder under my eyes, 9 times out of 10, it is really not going to look good by the end of the day. So I really am gravitating towards a concealer that I don't have to set, and I don't have to set those. And as long as I don't use too much with any of them, but also with the Colourpop, I don't need to set it and it doesn't crease a bunch in the day. I might have a few little creases, and after I put it on, I might have some creasing, but once I tap those out, it doesn't get worse throughout the day. So this one, super, super light. I'm gonna say this maybe a couple times, but I don't want to get into any sort of craziness. I just want to mention, because I'm not going to be talking about it on my channel in the future as far as products go. I'm not going to be talking about Kat Von D on my channel or Instagram or anywhere, just because she did recently basically promote anti-vaccine for her children, and you know, just by promoting not vaccinating your children, it's putting your kids at risk, and it's also putting the community at risk. It's not a personal choice that only affects you. It affects your kids who have no say in the matter. And also it affects the people that can't get vaccines because their immune systems are compromised. So people, the most vulnerable people, are the ones that they need the rest of us to be vaccinated and not be sick so that they're not getting exposed to these diseases that they can't be vaccinated against. So there are a few things that will really make me walk away from a makeup brand, and that one was like, no question, that's it. So she's very pale. Her brand is very friendly to pale skin, but I cannot endorse someone that it has the anti-vaccine stance. So this is, I think, the lightest thing I have come across that I would purchase, and So if you are extremely fair, I think this might be a good option. It's a good price. The only downside is you can't buy it, you know, locally. You do have to make an order from Colourpop directly. NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer is lighter than Shape Tape once it dries in fair. I feel like they look pretty similar when they're wet, but as they dry, Shape Tape does oxidize a couple shades in the fair shade at least, and the NARS doesn't. You get less product with NARS, but the formula, I find it's just a little easier to work with. I don't know if it's always been like this, but I feel like the amount of product that's coming out on my doe foot for the Shape Tape is just getting like more and more voluminous. So it's really hard for me to get a small amount because I don't use a ton of concealer, so I only want a small amount. So that and the scent are things that make me not so much of a... I really like how it works a lot, but I don't like the packaging and I don't like the scent. The NARS is unscented. You get the smaller doe foot that gets more scraped off. So if you use a lot of concealer at one time, it's going to be easier to use the Tarte. But for me, since I use a little bit at a time, this little bit of doe foot that gets all scraped off except for the tip is just exactly what I want. So I have been using this one a lot. It's easier for me to wear than the Colourpop because if I don't have some small amount of like color correction or coverage underneath my eyes, this can make my under eyes look gray because it's so like white based. And so that darkness, it just kind of makes it look a little gray because I'm not using full coverage. So this one is great formula, easy to wear. The color is nice. I'm a fan. The color on this, the Makeup Forever Ultra HD, is good, but the issue I have with this is getting it to wear under my eyes nicely. It's one that seems like it needs to be set with a powder, but I can't find a powder that makes it look nice and makes it not move around throughout the day. And since I have other concealers that do that for me, it's a little frustrating. There's a possibility I could mix these two since this one is super matte and really sets down, and this one doesn't set down as much as I need personally. It is also very, very light, though it has a little bit more pinky beige color to it than the Colourpop. So if other things are too matte for you, it would be worth maybe getting a sample of this to try out. And you get a decent amount of product. It's 0.23 ounces. The Tarte Shape Tape, you get like 0.33 ounces or something. You get a ton of product in Shape Tape. Yeah, so you get 10 mils. And that one, Radiant Creamy Concealer, I know is quite a bit less. Yeah, 6 mils, so 0.22. Not terrible. Another concealer that you get quite a bit of product in is IT Cosmetics by My Under Eye. So this is light, and they have their little description as ultra fair on this tube. And it is 0.28 ounces or 8 mils. So it's a good amount of product. It's hard to work with, I think, because it's so thick and you have a very, very tiny hole in the squeeze tube. So it's really tricky. You have to really kind of squeeze hard to get any product out. It is very thick and emollient, and a little goes a long way. It's also one that doesn't really set down, so you most likely will need to set it with a powder. Again, one I just cannot get to look good under my eyes. It's just too thick, too creamy, and it feels like no matter how thin of a layer I use, I can never get it to not crease. Combined with a powder, you know, what will happen is I'll powder it, it seems like it's set, and then throughout the day it will just kind of collect in my creases some more, and then it's almost like it sets with the powder that's there. So then I'll have creases that I can't tap out because they're like locked in. So I just have a terrible time wearing this, unfortunately. A new shade from the drugstore is this Ivory in the Maybelline Instant Age Rewind. This is more of a yellowy tone, though I find it to be kind of peachy once it dries down. It's lighter than Fair. Fair was the previous lightest shade. It's still not super light. There's also a new shade of the Maybelline Fit Me, which I have not purchased because I don't really love that concealer brand, and I have a lot of concealers and I have ones that I like a lot, so I'm just having a hard time justifying buying it. But if you like the formula, this one is probably going to be a little bit easier to wear, and it could be possibly more of like a corrector shade that's a little easier for the very, very fair people to wear. So it's a lovely formula. It's like right on the edge of the kind that I don't need to set. So because of that, I don't really wear it that often. Plus that spongy tip, it just drives me nuts. So I rip the spongy tip off, but the problem is then it tends to ooze out the top, and that will kind of dry out. So then you're just like continuing to waste product. So I feel like it's a no-win situation with this thing, unfortunately, on the packaging. Next up is what seems like an extremely light concealer, though it does dry down a little bit darker, and it's the Sephora Bright Future Gel Serum Concealer in Bavarian Cream, and this is their lightest shade. All of these are the lightest shade that the brand carries, just FYI. I like the color of this, and because it does dry down a tiny bit darker, it is a little bit easier for me to wear without any sort of color correction underneath because it doesn't get that ashy gray look. But the issue I have with, again, is this one, I just can't get it to sit well on my under eyes and not move around. If I use a powder, it won't look great, and then it will have those creases that kind of set throughout the day. So unfortunately, the formula doesn't work for me. I'm not sure if they're discontinuing that line. If they are, I will make a note about it because I feel like I've seen it on sale with Sephora. Another drugstore option is the Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define Full Coverage Conceal and Contour Concealer. This is in C1. This is their lightest shade in the US currently on Ulta. I believe they have a 0.5 or something. They, as I recall, they have released lighter shades of this, and I think they also have a white shade in this now, but Ulta didn't carry it the last time I checked. So hopefully Ulta will eventually carry everything in this line, and I will check again just in case maybe they've added it. So this is not a super light shade, but once they both have oxidized, it's about the same color as Tarte Shape Tape and Fair. So if you like the color of the Shape Tape, this one, does it have a scent? No, this does not have a scent, which I really, really appreciate. It just has that like kind of long wear base product smell, kind of like Revlon Color Stay, and there's a bunch of things. MAC Pro Longwear also has that scent. It smells like paint, basically. But yeah, it's fine. It's not great. It sits pretty well under my eyes without creasing. But I think the NARS ultimately probably sits the best along with the Shape Tape. So it has less coverage than Shape Tape since a lot of people do compare them. And I like it. And it is affordable when you first buy it, though it only has, the tube is very deceptive. You get a lot of plastic and not much product. So, so you get a third, not even a third. This is 3.4 mils. So you get about a third of the amount of product as you would in Shape Tape. So this isn't going to last as long as Shape Tape would because you get less product. And it has less coverage, so you probably need a little bit more. But it is a very nice formula, and if you're not looking to splash out on a more expensive concealer and you don't use a ton of concealer, maybe go for this one. And it doesn't have scent. That's also a selling point to me. And you can more easily get coupons on it. We don't want to discount that fact. With Ulta, they always have either like 20% off one item, sometimes 20% off all items that are not prestige, $3.50 off 15. You can work the deals, and because it's a drugstore brand, you can sometimes get buy one, get one 50% off. It's a lot easier to get it at a discount than the prestige product. Last thing I want to mention is I do have a white concealer. It's from BH Cosmetics and it's called the BH Studio Pro Total Coverage Concealer. I've not tried any of the colored concealers in this brand. I just wanted to try out the white. One thing you may not like, I know I don't like it, is that it's a squeezy tube with a really large hole and it's kind of runny. So I always have way too much concealer and it's always kind of like oozing out when I don't want it to. The cap also just pulls off, it doesn't twist off, so I feel like I'm just afraid that I'm going to pull it off and like squeeze and have concealer everywhere. So that is something to keep in mind. It's a good, affordable option for a white concealer. Whenever the Makeup Revolution, what the heck is this thing called? Conceal and Define concealer gets their white concealer at Ulta. That will be another easy to access white concealer. So I'm really glad that more drugstore brands have white concealers because that is a useful thing for lightening concealers. So many times the lightest shade in a foundation will be lighter than the lightest concealer. And while that might be fine, I am fine using a darker concealer under my eyes to kind of correct and not using something for brightening. So many people use concealers to brighten, and when you are the lightest shade in the foundation, it's really quite rare to have a concealer that's actually lighter than your foundation, which is really frustrating. So hopefully brands will continue to release really fair concealers like they are starting to release really fair foundations. The Colourpop one, 100% if you're looking for an extremely fair concealer, either to match your face because you are extremely fair, or if you are very fair but want to brighten, I think that's going to be able to brighten a lot of people's skin tone because it is so light. So let me know if you have any questions about the products.